Sometimes life isn't fair. Sometimes games flounder at release because the timing is wrong or because they didn't get the right kind of promotion. The ideas might be there, the concept might be great, but for whatever reason, otherwise worthwhile titles trip and fall at the final hurdle. And then there's the dreaded 7 out of 10, a score that says yes, this is great, but is it great enough? Many of the games that follow are classic 7 out of 10s, flawed diamonds that still sparkle in the correct light, easygoing adventures that somehow ask less of you than more intense AAA titles, but still leave you feeling satisfied. And usually once you've played them, they won't feel so average anymore, and you can carry on the work started in this video by telling strangers at bus stops how good Binary Domain is. Spread the word, people. Here are 8 wonderfully average games that don't get the love they deserve. The best way of explaining this concept is to show you an example, and Alpha Protocol is maybe the best worst example of an average game that deserved better. It's the video game equivalent of an aspirational speaker full of big ideas, bold dreams and features that have helped other games go on to greatness. But as Deus Ex receives critical acclaim, Alpha Protocol sleeps on a bench wondering where it all went wrong. It's an espionage RPG that attempts to include the entire experience of being a spy. Instead of just being about action and takedowns, Alpha Protocol adds a strategic element featuring broad choices that few other espionage games bother with. Does it work? Well, not exactly, but the systems and ideas here are still brilliant, and Alpha Protocol deserves your time, if only so you can play it and marvel at what could have been. Loving Binary Domain is like being part of a secret society. There's a shared joy in finding someone else who's played it, those who understand that no, it's not the greatest game ever made, but yes, it's still strangely compelling. It's the very definition of a 7 out of 10 game, the sort of title you'd hire from the video store, complete, but only consider buying when it's $5 on Steam. It's a simple, chunky action game that doesn't ask too much of you, but still feels solidly enjoyable. Will you remember the plot once it's finished? Almost certainly not, but it definitely involves robots. But what everyone does remember is that shredding relentless machines in hails of bullets and flying metal shards feels amazing, and that's enough to earn Binary Domain a spot on anyone's best average games list. And there's a cheerful French robot who wears a neckerchief as well. If you weren't sold on it before, you should be now.
Oui, monsieur.
Sometimes you don't want sharp, reactive action titles. You want the gaming equivalent of smoking a pipe, a cozy Sunday afternoon sit down by the fire, the smell of old books, rich tobacco, and antique furniture. Sherlock Holmes, Crimes and Punishment is exactly that kind of game. It's a genteel, thoughtful detective title that does a great job of capturing the spirit of Sherlock Holmes without trying to be cool. Something its semi-sequel The Devil's Daughter got slightly wrong when it made Watson look like an artisan barista. The very fact that Crimes and Punishment is so sedate and ordinary makes it stand out. You stroll around a world that feels like it's from a lavish TV show from yesteryear and spend loads of time piecing together evidence and actually thinking about clues, like Sherlock Holmes. It isn't the sort of game people recommend unconditionally, but if you want something thoughtful, pleasant and cheerfully old-fashioned, Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishment is the comforting tea and crumpets of video games.
Mr. Holmes, I'm over here. Come on.
We'll forgive you if you missed Warhammer The End Times Vermintide, because in the time it's taken me to say the name, 3 more Warhammer games have probably been released. And also now might not be the best time to grab it, considering a sequel is on the way. But the Skaven-like secret that everyone who's played Vermintide knows is that it's one of the best multiplayer titles on PC, and perhaps the best representation of the Warhammer world in all of games. Yes, it's Left 4 Dead with giant rats, but that's obviously a good thing. The characters are all satisfyingly different, and the weapons and loot system encourage all sorts of thoughtful experimentation. But let's not get too bogged down. Vermintide is brilliant because it's great fun to find 3 trusted friends and spend an afternoon smashing vicious rat men to meaty pieces. If you fancy stepping into a frantic fantasy buddy movie set during the end times, Vermintide is too good a secret not to share. It's a bit of a high-concept pitch, isn't it? A reimagining of Journey to the West, one of the great classical novels of Chinese literature, set in a future dominated by human-eradicating mechs, starring Andy Serkis, playing a man called Monkey. You still with us? So that might make you think that Enslaved is an unusual game, but in fact, it's one that feels immediately familiar in all the best ways. Traversal is like Uncharted without the threat of falling, and combat is intuitive and satisfying. But the real reason that Enslaved makes this list is because of the world. It's a gorgeous, colourful post-apocalypse, with a compelling story written by Deus Ex Machina's Alex Garland. And in Monkey and Trip, you have two interesting, flawed and compelling lead characters, who deserve to be enjoyed by far more people. Mad Max's biggest mistake was being released the same day as Metal Gear Solid 5. Anybody looking for some grizzled man in dusty open-world sandbox action was only making one decision given that choice, and poor old Max has been left to wander the Aussie outback on his own. But Mad Max has been sadly overlooked and is absolutely deserving of your time. The fights are vicious, the driving is volatile, and the world reminds us why post-apocalypses in games have always been a thing. Yes, it's slightly ordinary, but it knots together into enjoyable carnage that makes it one of our favourite open-world games. It will cheerfully devour hours and hours of your time if you fancy a departure from the more familiar wastelands seen in the likes of Fallout. And if your gaming experiences have started to feel a bit vanilla, give old Max a try, because nothing says mad like driving around the end times in a car that's literally on fire. PC players have only recently got the chance to play Vanquish, as it was released on Steam in 2017, so there's a chance it may have passed you by. And if you have even a passing interest in action games, pause this video, pop Vanquish on your Steam wishlist and come back, because it still feels as fresh and invigorating as an ice bath in your underwear. Vanquish, quite obviously, is absolute bobbins. It features a growling comic book hero who smokes, "Oh you bad boy you," and power slides about like a 4-year-old on a wedding dance floor. The Russians are apparently bad robots from space, and there's a vast man with a metal arm. But none of this matters because Vanquish feels amazing to play. No matter how bad you are at it, there are moments when you'll feel like the coolest person who ever sat in front of a keyboard. And even now, 8 years on, few action games have the effortless, free-flowing immediacy of Vanquish. Yes, it's completely stupid, but sometimes we all need the right kind of stupid. Imagine a Call of Duty game that borrows every single good idea from every other shooter and tries to ram it all into one complete title, like a drawer stuffed with dangerous socks. That's basically Singularity. Raven Software's unusual shooter passed many people by because it was released in 2010 to almost no fanfare, but it's a great FPS. It shamelessly plunders other games. There's the gravity gun from Half-Life, the upgrade systems from BioShock, and time-bending mechanics that can age or repair objects, very like what we saw in Titanfall 2. In these respects and many others, it's like a greatest hits LP with shooting. Instead of picking a favourite album, Singularity has instead gone for the very best of guns. It's a hidden gem with loads of good ideas obscured by an apparent lack of originality. Most of the ideas in Singularity have been seen elsewhere, but once you've played it, you can't help but evangelise about how this absurdly enjoyable FPS toy box probably deserved better. So there you go, 8 wonderfully ordinary games that are worthy of your precious time. Where's Deadly Premonition, you correctly ask? Well, it doesn't belong here, because this is a list of average games, and Deadly Prem, as anyone who's played it knows, is one of the greatest games of all time. Move along please, there's nothing to see here. Did we miss any average games you can recommend? Should we have swapped Binary Domain for Kingdoms of Amalur? Let us know in the comments below, give us a like if you love a good 7 out of 10, and subscribe to Logitech G for more weekly features. Thank you very much for watching.